All right, let's talk about the anxious mind. And we're going to build a whole new toolkit for it. So, what if managing anxiety wasn't about trying to get rid of it, but about understanding it? We're going to be diving into some really transformative ideas from CBT specialist Veronica Walsh. Okay, so let's just jump right in with a really big question. What if that feeling of anxiety, that constant chatter in your head, what if it isn't a personal failing? What if it's not a sign that something is broken in you? I absolutely love this quote from Veronica Walsh. Go to normal town and there'll be nobody there. That's a fact. I mean, it just completely dismantles this pressure we all feel to be normal, right? The whole idea of some perfectly calm, anxiety-free person, yeah, it's a total myth. Yep, that's exactly where we're starting, debunking this whole myth of being perfectly calm. Look, anxiety is just part of being human. A lot of us are simply wired to be more sensitive, maybe a little more hyper-aware, and that's not a flaw. Think of it like this, it's just a different operating system. And this wiring, it can come from all over the place. Maybe it's genetics, you were just born with a more sensitive nervous system. Or it could totally be shaped by your life experiences. But here's the most important part. It's about your wiring, not your worth. This is such a perfect way to think about it. Conan O'Brien once said he has a heart that beats like a hummingbird. And he doesn't fight that high energy wiring, right? He just embraces it. It's part of who he is. And really, that's the goal for all of us. Moving towards that kind of self-acceptance, no strings attached. Okay, so this brings us to what might be the single biggest shift in perspective in this whole toolkit. It's all about changing how you see yourself. It's about moving away from feeling like a helpless victim of your own nervous system and stepping into the role of a capable, effective manager of your own unique mind. And here it is, laid out plain and simple. The old way? That's feeling broken, feeling like you have to completely eliminate anxiety to be okay. But the new way? The new way is about understanding you're just wired differently, and you absolutely can and you will live well with anxiety. You just have to learn how to manage it. So the big question is, how do we actually start managing it? Well, our first tool is a classic technique from cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT, called externalization. Now, I know it sounds a little complicated, but trust me, it's actually incredibly simple and can even be a little bit fun. All it is giving your anxiety a character. See, by creating a persona for those anxious thoughts, you immediately create some distance. It helps you realize that voice in your head, it isn't actually you. It's just your anxiety talking. And that little bit of separation, it gives you back all the power. It gives you the authority to respond instead of just automatically reacting. So let's meet a few of these potential characters, shall we? First up, maybe you've got a Bridget Jones in your head. You know the one. It's the part that catastrophizes everything, worries dramatically, and is just absolutely convinced you're making a huge mess of it all. Oh yeah, we all know that voice. Or, hey, maybe your anxiety is more of a Hugh Grant from a classic romantic comedy. You know, that kind of charming but anxious, bumbling part of you that just avoids stuff and is so sure you'll, well, never quite get it right. Then, of course, there's the monkey brain. This is that super primal, reactive part of us that just acts on impulse. And listen, it's not evil. It's just trying to protect you, but in a really clumsy way. There's not a lot of rational thought going on there. And finally, maybe you've got a wolf. That's the part that gets really oversensitive, maybe angry, and it just engages in that mean, snarling self-talk. The key here is just recognizing which character is talking. That's always the first step to taming it. Okay, so once you've figured out which persona is speaking up, guess what? You don't just have to sit there and listen to it. The next tool is all about actively talking back, interrupting that negative loop before it gets going. And here's a perfect example of what that sounds like. Instead of just letting that inner wolf tear you down, you stop it in its tracks. You assert your authority. You say, whoa, wolf, not today. Knock it off. Get back in your cage. Be cool. You're literally reminding that part of your brain who is actually in charge here. One of the biggest, most common anxiety loops is what Veronica Walsh calls the postmortem trap. And you know exactly what this is. It's when you do something you think is daft or silly, and then you just replay it in your head over and over for hours, maybe even days, just piling on more and more misery. So the trick is to have a plan ready to go to escape this trap. The second you catch yourself starting one of those postmortems, you use the mantra, oh well, so what, onward. That's it. Visualize yourself shrugging, maybe even physically shake your body, and just move on. Do not give that thought another second of your energy. And this is another absolute cornerstone of CBT, and it is so important. Feelings are not facts. Just because you feel like you're in danger or you feel like a total failure, that does not make it true. Feelings are just temporary signals from your nervous system. They are not objective reality. And once you really get that, it creates this powerful pause between feeling something and acting on it. So all of these tools, they all lead to this one final, really big mindset shift. It's all about letting go of this idea that you are a fixed, anxious person, and instead embracing the identity of a dynamic, evolving work in progress. And this quote just nails the difference. You are not your anxiety. You are a person managing anxiety. And listen, this isn't just playing with words. It's a really profound shift. Anxiety is something you experience, something you manage. It is not something that defines the core of who you are. So here are some of those really powerful self-talk mantras you can start to bake into your own thinking. Things like, I'm a work in progress, I can reinvent myself, or anxiety is just brain chemistry, it's not a character flaw, or reminding yourself, my stress response is a human thing I can manage. And a big one, I don't demand 24/7 confidence from myself. This is what self-compassion actually sounds like in practice. All right, let's put it all together. Here's your new CBT starter toolbox. First, maybe start a journal to track those anxious self-talk patterns. Second, practice thinking about your thinking. That's just a fancy word, metacognition. Third, actively work on reframing those negative thoughts when they pop up. And maybe most important of all, build and actually use these new empowering mantras every single day. You know, it kind of reminds me of Alice in Wonderland when she realizes it's no use going back to yesterday because I was a different person then. The point is, you are not stuck. The old you was yesterday. You get to build the you of tomorrow starting right now. So the only question left is, what will that new you choose to do?